It's the Walk Pod post-match phone-in. Today we're going to be discussing Preston 1, Luton Town 0. And with me, as always, is my co-host, Mark Ryman. How are you getting on, Mark?
Yeah, I'm all right. I was kind of hoping it'd be a really positive, upbeat pod after what was a convincing victory after a good 45 minutes against Pompey. I was trying to wrap my brains about what this performance reminded me of. And I don't know whether you remember when we released, or the club released the ground, Kenilworth Road on FIFA or whatever it's called now, FC24. I downloaded the game, but I hadn't played it for years and years. And I was all right. I was able to get into like the opposition third, but I kept confusing the cross and the shot button and just kept smashing it everywhere. At half time, it was like, yes, that's exactly what this game reminds me of. So I even looked down at one point to see if the controller was in my hand, but apparently that wasn't the reason for it. Not particularly convincing in the final third, right?
It was a very frustrating game, to say the least. Look, people have opinions on it. Some people are saying trust the process, which doesn't even relate to this, because in all fairness, it was a very ineffective performance. Yes, lots of the ball. Yes, some nice passing, but ultimately passes that went astray. Still the same old issues with gaps in the midfield, Preston getting around the side of us. I discussed them in my immediate post-match reaction, which is up on our YouTube. If you are watching this on YouTube, by the way, like this video, subscribe for more Luton Town content. We also do championship content because it's the greatest league in the world, just not for Luton Town right now. Also, a big shout out to our audio partners, Black Star Amplification and Carry On, for making sure that we sound top notch. And a big thank you to our podcast sponsors, The Record Shop in Amersham. If you collect vinyl, go check them out because they are the kings of vinyl. But let's sort of dive into this game. When the lineup came out, we'll just discuss it briefly, and then we'll get our first speaker on, which I have, hashtagging Tom Lockyer with Trust is waiting very patiently. When the lineup was announced and you saw a debut for Mark McGuinness, Ruel Walters drops to the bench, no Joe Johnson on the bench, which I guess I can understand because you have the returning Mads Anderson. What were you thinking?
Yeah, I mean, I think that after the second half at Portsmouth, we were all fingers crossed, praying for a back four. I certainly was, because the way we played, although I get it maybe, and I'm still hoping that maybe when Nakamba or Kraus is fit, then that is the key to that. I'm sure we'll discuss it later. I think it was harsh on Walters. Walters up there was one of the best players for me down that side, and he's offered a lot more, let's be honest, than Albene has done in the games that we've seen him. And again today, I feel like Albene since really he's come back, he's not looked the same player. Whether that's just because he's playing too far back, but I just thought that harsh. It was exciting to see the debut for McGuinness, definitely, and what I did think was how much more depth we had on the bench. It was really good to see that bench and see the depth that we had, not just at the back, but across the field. I mean, that was really promising and positive. But as I said, I think I was a bit disappointed to see Walters drop out, because I think that's pretty unfortunate. He's looked one of the better players in our side over the last three games, and certainly offered more, I think, at both ends of the pitch than Chio has done. And I guess that'll get spoken about, as well as on the other side with Doughty too. So yeah, but I was pretty optimistic, let's be honest, looking at that team, as we all were, that is a pretty good team, and a team that we would expect to do not just really well in the league, but really well in a game against a team that's not scored a goal for 7 games. You would hope that's got enough about them in that team to win the game, or at least get a point.
You've hit the nail on the head there about Ogbene being too far back. You know, I felt Ogbene's best performances came when, yes, we were playing this formation, but he was playing on the left inside forward position with Doughty behind him, because those two were absolutely destroying defences. They gave Trent Alexander-Arnold a sleepless night. So I don't know why all of a sudden we've reverted Ogbene to a right wing back. It makes no sense. But that is just like the surface of it, really. I'd prefer Walters to be right wing back because he actually is a wing back and he's a right-sided defender. But the biggest issue for me is the issues in the middle of the park. Two in the middle just simply doesn't work. There was a moment today where the ball gets played into the middle and there's literally no one around. Ben Whiteman just played a ball straight through, and it was tremendous keeping from James Shea to really get out quickly, close down. I think it was Jakobsen or Will Keane, who knows. And that could have been 1-0, like before it was actually 1-0. And the less said about their goal, the better, because that was embarrassing how Will Keane had that much space in the middle of the box to turn, control the ball, get a shot off. Just embarrassing ultimately.
And the freedom of Deepdale, didn't he, to have that shot? Absolutely. And I think James Shea, by the way, had a really good game and did that a few times. Came out really confidently as well. So, if there's some positives to take, that's probably in it. For me, Ogbene, the biggest problem with Ogbene at the moment, and he is out of form, as is Morris, chronically out of form. But they are both playing out of position. So, for me, Ogbene can't do the kind of push it past a player and run, because he knows that if he loses the ball doing that, there is no one behind him. So you get this kind of half and half, no man's land, Chio Ogbene, who can't really put all of his attacking chips forward and is sort of stuck in that space. For me, Morris on the right does not work at all. His form is off too. I mean, his touch today was poor, as it was against Burnley. But actually, he's playing far too deep for a player who should be much further forward if he's going to play at all. He just doesn't work on that right-hand side for me at all. And I think, Doughty's crossing from corners. I can't remember how many he had. 13 corners? I might be wrong on that one, but it was a lot. Too many. And it became predictable. So too predictable. Many. I think that is the problem when you have that many corners as well. Eventually the opposition's going to work it out.
Yeah. They all go to the back post. It's all back post for the head back across.
Yeah.
Okay.
We had one or two corners that worked, didn't we?
That's the word.
Yeah, they worked to start with. There were a couple of chances. Morris, I think, should have done better. In the end, I think McGuinness did really well to get the defender out of the way, which left Morris free, and he headed it really far down. It meant it bounced over, and Adebayo had a decent chance from a corner as well. But after that, it was so predictable. It was so obvious what we were going to do. Preston were able to deal with it comfortably, and on both sides of the pitch, it's a problem. And as you say, I think the midfield, we all know, don't we, where our gaps are and our holes are, and we all know we're going to get picked apart on that with a two-man midfield. We just got to hope it changes when we get a defensive midfielder fit, which is hopefully Tuesday, if not Saturday.
Yeah, well, Marv's been out for the better part of a year, so I imagine he won't really get too much game time for the foreseeable, but hopefully he'll get some minutes against QPR at Loftus Road. Right, enough of us talking. Let's get some callers, shall we? Who we got?
So, in Tom Lock here we trust. Si, unmute yourself, mate. Tell us what you thought of the game, or add to what we've been saying already, please do.
Well, very disappointing, of course. I expected something from today. I thought today would be a turning point. I just want to echo what you said about Ogbene. He's more effective further forward. We all know that. I can understand him playing in that spot when it's necessary, but I don't know if it is currently necessary for him to be there. We seem to have no plan B. We only went to a back four because we had to, when we had the red card. There's persisting with the system, and then there is just being stubborn. I think, are we being stubborn in this? when we don't have the personnel in the middle of the park in order to effectively not be played straight through the middle of? Because I'm not sure. Like you said, 2 in the middle ain't working. Morris bang off form. Adebayo struggling to really impact things at the minute because, as you said, we're incredibly predictable. Very predictable. Those corners, like I messaged Ollie after the game and I was like, look, 13 corners 2 years ago, not scoring one of them would be unthinkable. And here we are now, 140 days since we last won a competitive game of football. Something's up.
Yeah.
It is concerning, isn't it?
Yeah,
Go on,
I was
Mark.
just going to echo the same thing. It really does feel like, stubbornness to the point on Edward's part sometimes with this. Look, we get it. It's a system that worked, but I was texting some relatives who were also watching the game today and said that we have now essentially made a system for players that are no longer here in Barkley and Lokonga, at the detriment of the players that are here in Morris, in Ogbene, and a number of others as well. And I don't understand the logic of that when we had a system that worked with this team, or this skeleton of this team that did so well in the Championship previously and in the Premier League as well.
See, it does feel like we have abandoned a lot of what got us to the dance initially. And I understand adapting and changing with the times, but you just look at what's going on and what's been going on now for quite a long time, I've been one to say, look, let's see how it goes. But we've been saying that for quite a long time now. Oh, let's see how it goes. It feels like we've been saying it all year. And, I think Rob Edwards probably, is safe. His job is not under question for me. I just think that we need to be a bit more adaptive. When things aren't going the way we want them to with what we're doing, we need to be prepared and able to change that to deal with what's in front of us on the day. Because at the minute, everyone's going, well, Luton are going to come here and play like this. And they train all week for that exact scenario and we don't change.
You're right there. It's far too predictable. And I mentioned that in my immediate post-match reaction. I could see this happening in the off season when the club released that documentary showing the training in Slovenia. You could see the patterns of play. It was exactly what we saw today. It was exactly what we saw against Burnley. It was literally pass it from the middle, pass it out to the wings, and then if you can't get an across, it goes back around to the other wing, and then a cross comes in. That is literally it. We don't enter the box through the D. We only enter the box from the sides, from the touch lines, and it's so obvious what we're gonna do, and it's we gotta come up with, for a better lack of word, a plan B, and we do have to go back to those basics of being tough to beat, tough to score against. For most importantly, because that is the bread and butter, to quote Nathan Jones, of how we had success. First of all, be tough to beat. And that is the success that Rob built off to get us promoted to the Premier League in the first place. Like, no one's going to diminish what he did for us, because, getting promoted to the Premier League only a decade after being in the conference was not even in the wildest fantasies of most Luton Town fans. It just wasn't. But he's, sort of undoing the good graces in the eyes of the majority of the fan base right now by refusing to have any tactical flexibility, really. Sai, thank you very much for joining us, though. We got a bunch of other speakers to get on.
All good, guys. I'm happy to hear what others think as well. Speak to you soon.
Cheers, yeah, please.
Yeah, no worries, guys.
Enjoy the show, mate. Right, who we got next? I see we've got two speakers.
Yeah, I think it was Mark, but I'm sorry, Dan, if it was you first, but I'll go with Mark only because of your great name. So we'll go with Mark first, mate. If unmute yourself, add to our general kind of displeasure at the performance, please.
It's the famous Mark the Hatter of the Mark the Hatter Super Question of the Week. How are you getting on tonight, Brocky?
Yeah, I'm okay, thanks, Ollie and Mark. How are you guys?
Yeah, we're good.
Yeah, we're doing good. I'll try to address any questions I have to the correct Mark this time. So I'll call one will be Mark, the other one will be Brocky. So we don't have a rerun of last week's incident.
Well, I can see you've got a couple of people lined up, so I won't take up too much time. There's only one real point I want to make in a moment. But firstly, this is all part of the fun of being a Luton fan. Like I've just had, Sky Sports do their thing where they play the majority of a match in the evening, and they just had Man City on. Think how fucking boring it must be sat there at home to Ipswich being a Man City fan. Like it's just same fuck. I say same shit. There's no jeopardy being a Man City fan. There is plenty of jeopardy every single week being a Luton fan. So I know that that's not kind of what everybody looks for in football, in the sense that a lot of people just want glory and success. But the journey is always fun. It's a little bit shit at the moment. Things will get better, and I do believe that. But, that doesn't mean the debate and all of this isn't worth it. It absolutely is. And again, that's all part of the fun too. But yeah, keep your head up, everybody. But I think success is kind of defined by adapting to the necessity to reinvent yourself, in the sense that we don't need to reinvent ourselves completely. But the crux of this for me at the moment is, if you're going to play two in centre midfield, you need two very, very good, exceptional centre midfielders. And those centre midfielders need to be creative players, and they need to be able to play fantastic football in transition. Modern football now is the crux of the game is about transition. If you compare it to kind of the clips of the 70s, the 80s, even the 90s, maybe even the noughties sometimes, the main difference now is the speed at which teams transition. And we're still sticking with two in centre mid, but we've lost the two, incredible playmakers that we had in Ross Barkley and Lokonga, and we've replaced them with, at the minute, Shandon Baptiste, who I think he's doing his best, but he has his limitations. He's not going to pick that killer pass as often as someone like Barkley. He's not going to carry and run as direct at people as Barkley does. And then Jordan Clark, who I think we can still get more out of at the moment. I think he can actually play that role a little bit better than he is. But I wonder what the instructions are that he's being given at the moment. My concern is we brought Kraus in, who's kind of a destroyer. He's not that creative type of player that I'm describing, and neither is Nakamba. So for me, the main change has to be, we cannot just play two in the middle, because we're going to get picked apart, and we're not going to find the pass, the killer pass, the creative flair that we need. We could look at minute things like Morris playing inside forward rather than a number 9, and I do think that's an issue. I don't think Morris thrives in the inside forward role. But the crux for me is those two centre midfielders, and need to change. Well, I don't want to say the personnel. We do need a creative midfielder, in my opinion, but we've kind of already got all the players we're going to buy in centre mid, and we do need to put probably 3 in there in whatever kind of minute formation we choose to. But 2 isn't working, in my opinion.
Well, there is one more player coming in, hopefully Tuesday, Wednesday, in addition to Ngoy. So I don't know yet whether that's a midfielder, a defender, or an attacker. But I reckon it's one to greatly improve the squad. So I guess we'll see. But ultimately, what you're saying is what I completely agree with, that we need to play a 3 in midfield. I think Baptiste and Clark work perfectly fine, providing there is a Kraus or a Nakamba behind them. That is the only way to do it. And it all goes back to getting back to the fundamentals of what got us promoted in the first place. A 3-5-2. It worked really well. Why can't it work again? Because it made us very defensively solid.
Yeah, at the minute we're predictable in the sense that teams can work out what we're going to do before the game begins. So we get the ball, we work it wide, they cover the wide areas, and we don't seem to have any thrust through the middle at all. So we're easily found out. If you look at the success of other teams in the Championship at the moment, like Leeds, Leeds are rapid in transition. If you saw a couple of the goals last night, they're rapid in transition. They're getting the ball out to Nonto and Dan James. Even if you look, I don't want to say it, but look at the Scummers. They've got Sissoko in centre mid, who is excellent in transition, plays a really intelligent pass, plays quick football. Burnley had Sander Berge. The minute they've lost Sander Berge today, they struggled. And I know they had other injuries and they've lost other players too, but those, you can never underestimate the value of a player like Sander Berge, like a Ross Barkley, like a whatever. And that's really obvious to say, but they are the main cog in this whole process that keeps things spinning. And if we're just going to have two in centre mid, I just can't see it work. And even like Blackburn have got Travis, Sunderland have got Joe Bellingham, that they've got those players that can use that creative flair to have really quick, effective and incisive transition plays. But yeah, that's just what I was thinking today when I was watching it.
That's very fair. Thank you very much, Brocky. Really appreciate you joining us tonight.
No worries. Have a good evening, lads.
Cheers, Mark.
Right. We got Dan Ashby next. If anyone else wants to jump on afterwards, please just request to speak. We'll be delighted to have you on if we have time. Right. Dan, good evening, mate.
Evening, how are we all doing?
Could be better.
Yeah. I think we just need to chill out a little bit. Burnley was bad. Portsmouth, let's be honest, we should have been 2 or 3-0 up by the time we got the Kaminsky sent off. They didn't really look like scoring against us apart from the one header that Kaminsky saved. Against Portsmouth, Morris should have scored. Adebayo should have scored 2. Clark didn't have a problem creating through the middle in that game. Today, it didn't really look like conceding apart from the goal we did. And in the last 2 games, we've created 5 big chances. The issue has moved away from defence. It's just we're not taking our chances. We should be on 4 points. And if we were, I don't think there'd be this outrage. It's just because we're not scoring. And that's unfortunately been Morris and Adebayo haven't taken the chances in the last 2 games.
I would ask, I mean, how many big chances did we have today? I would say Doughty's one towards the end, definitely.
So the stats are...
Sorry.
I think, well...
According to FOTMob, 1 big chance.
Yeah, and I think that might have been Adebayo's one at the start of the second half. But even with, like, Morris was pretty unlucky with the header. Doughty has to do better cutting in. Baptiste has to get his chance on target. Adebayo's had 3 or 4 headers, which has not been good enough. That's enough chances to score. Not scoring.
Felt the Doughty one. It could have been better with the Doughty one, to be honest. Where he
exactly.
cut in.
And
the Baptiste one as well.
I agree. And that's nothing to do with how we're being set up. We're creating chances, like Edward said. Players have got to start scoring. Simple as that. Okay,
Dan, but what about the fact that we always get cut through with one single ball through the middle? Wouldn't you prefer to see an extra midfielder thrown in?
No, I don't think. No? Don't think we need it at the minute.
Well, not even against like the bigger teams in the Championship.
I mean,
where we can get hurt, like Burnley.
We've played Burnley, and we had Johnson, who's not good enough, and Nelson, who's not good enough, playing. That's your main reason.
Oh, that's a fair point. Okay.
Would we? I mean, also, can we? Let's talk about Preston as well. I mean, no one expects to roll any teams over today in the Championship. Every team is is going to be a tough test. No one underestimates this league. But realistically, we are talking about a team that's not scored in 7. Yes, they've got a new manager, although I don't buy the new manager bounce too much in that short space of time. They set up okay defensively, but really. I think, to be honest, with the amount of forward play we had, we could have created maybe more than we did. And actually, the one chances we did create, as Dan's alluded to as well, I think most of those came through the middle as well, interestingly. But I mean, there are still issues. We still did have 13 corners and a few set pieces that we really should do better with, considering the finishes that we have in terms of the delivery too. Now, again, you can say, well, that's on the players. That's not on the formation. That's not on the tactic.
That is on the players. Though.
Yeah, absolutely. But
at the end of the day, the last 2 games, Edwards has set us up, and we missed 4 big chances against Portsmouth. Like, you can't do that. Today, we've missed another big chance with Adebayo. Doughty and Baptiste hasn't hit the target from about basically straight in front of the goal. That's not Edwards' fault. Like, I agree there might be some things that maybe we need to tweak. I've been for a Bene at right wing back. I disagree with you. I think his 2 best performances were at right wing back. One was against Brighton and the other one was against Newcastle.
But everything went right against Brighton, and against Newcastle he was against Dan Burn, who's the slowest person. But also while you're saying those were his 2 best performances,
exactly. Right wing
they were
back.
back to back. They were back to back, and they were consecutive games. And after the Newcastle game, we had been figured out by the entire Premier League, pretty much, because that is the formation we're still playing.
Yes, so we're still playing
and
this.
And carried through to the Championship.
So how high is Ogbene playing? Is he playing as a winger now, if he's right wing back?
It's pretty much playing as a winger. So yeah, he's not defending. Exactly. And there's no one behind him.
Exactly. So if we put Walters there, Walters isn't as good as Ogbene as a winger. He's good and he's done well at right centre back. And we're going to see on Tuesday, because Walters is going to probably play right wing back. So I do agree that there's times where Ogbene can go a bit further forward, but there's this thing that he's not getting forward enough. It's just a load of rubbish, because he's spending most of the time at right wing position as a right wing back.
So it's not. No. Sorry,
you're fine.
Sorry, Mark. It's not that it's not that he's not getting forward. It's not that he's not beating his man. Like, he can't play Dan Burn every single week. Who's like got the speed of a rhinoceros.
Did he not beat his man today against Kessler Hayden? Did he not beat his man against Portsmouth? And Adebayo hit chance against the bar.
The problem with Ogbene, sorry. The problem with Ogbene, yeah.
I forgot you were here.
Sorry, Ogbene is getting forward, but all the time he's turning and playing it backwards. It's happening constantly. You can't deny that reality.
So what happened to the Adebayo shot then, if he's always playing backwards?
I didn't say it was all, but he is playing it back constantly. I didn't say always, but it's been figured out. The formation has been figured out. To deny that is silly, and it's not productive. Something's got to change, because otherwise we're going to struggle to even crack playoffs this year.
No, it's a load of rubbish. At the end of the day, last time we got promoted, in our first 4 games, we got 2 points. We could beat QPR at the weekend and be on 4 points. It's a load of rubbish.
QPR aren't pushovers.
Can I just go in between and compromise before we go full blown each other? Just in between. I'll try and mediate. Just to answer what Dan was saying before, and in terms of Ogbene, look, I hope no one's doubting his ability going forwards, and I think that going forwards he's a great player. My argument wasn't Walters instead of Ogbene as a straight swap. It was to play a 4 at the back with Walters as a right back. Let me finish for a second. But my argument for doing that was that the problem with Ogbene as is that he hasn't got anyone behind him as cover, which is leading to him not always pushing past the fullback, as Sire's mentioned. So that's the issue, and we're not utilising his attacking strengths as well as we could do. Now, you may well be right. Edwards might decide that that's not going to happen. I'm not sure, to be honest, because let's look at the 4 we played at the back against Pompey. There's no way we haven't practiced that system. We were brilliant. We'll all agree, right? We can all agree second half versus Pompey with 10 men. we were organised, we looked great at the back, and we actually still offered more going forward, I think, than they probably did, bar the last 5 minutes of that game. There's no way that we haven't practiced that system or played for that system. So I would hope, at least, when we have a defensive midfielder, that gives us the option for it at the back. But anyway, that's ifs and buts. But that's all I was going to say on the Albeni point.
I don't think he is going to do that, Mark. Though he's not done that in his managerial career, and you can say we look solid at 4 at the back, but let's be honest, any team that goes down to 10 men does 4-4-1 and look pretty solid. Plymouth done it today as well. So I agree to what you're saying, and I'm not ruling out, like, if Walters does well against QPR midweek, I think it's worth giving him a go at right wing back. But to say Ogbene isn't suited to it, I just can't agree with it.
No, you did make a good point, Dan, about the fact that, Ogbene realistically can't push further forward because there's no one behind him. So I would suggest the best thing to do, going back to what I said earlier about going back to the fundamentals, if you go for a midfield 3, then you have a player that can occupy that half space, meaning for 2 in the middle, it's a lot of ground to cover, especially when, playing a double pivot without someone sitting behind or someone in front to drop in. It's nigh on impossible. Like the football pitch is massive, and you can get pulled all over the place.
Yeah.
So I feel to get Ogbene to utilise Ogbene in the right wing back position, or Walters in the right wing back position, you need that third man in midfield to sort of cover that space instead of having the right centre back stepping up to that space, because then you get what we had today, whereby Ogbene pushes up, the ball gets one back. I think it was Mengi today that was right centre back. It has pushed up, and then the ball just goes past him, and then you have the central defender in a foot race, and if he gets beaten, boom, you got a tap in essentially, which we saw today, and we've seen it lots of times where ultimately we haven't been punished. But look, it's there's a long season, but we do need to start chalking up those wins if we do want to be in the upper mid table part of this season. We just have to be, and considering we come down, we're starting to spend money, we're starting to throw our weight about a bit. We need the performances to back up the money that we're spending.
The performances the last 2 games have warranted more than 1 point. I think we can all do that, right?
They have, but ultimately it comes down to how many times you put the ball in the back of the net.
But that's got nothing to do with Edwards. Edwards has set the team up, and it's been the players on the pitches missing the chances, especially in the port.
Do you think he should be more flexible in terms of what he does in game?
What would you have done today, though? That's any different? Because you look.
I would have gone more direct today.
I think that's fair. But you look on the bench, Joe Taylor's not good enough at this level. Woodrow's
he needs more than 10 minutes.
I agree, but I've seen nothing to suggest that he's up to the level at the minute. I'm not saying he won't be, but that's my opinion. Woodrow not good enough. Zach Nelson's a bit too young. So you're looking at, we don't really have an option off the bench at the minute. Jack Brown's obviously injured, and we're obviously using a Bene at right wing back, so we don't really have anyone to change the game.
Can we talk about Morris quickly on this? Just so you say we got no one else on the bench. Morris, do you think? And then sorry, Mark, Brocky's got his hand up as well, so if you want to unmute as well. But I just wanted to add another question there. Do we think that Morris is currently warranting a space in that attacking team? You say Taylor's not good enough. We know Morris is good enough. He's brilliant at this level. He was our top scorer for the championship. I'm not doubting his ability, but at the moment on the right-hand side, for me, he's really ineffective there. Why are we trying to put square pegs in round holes? And to answer sorry, carry on, Dan.
Yeah, so I was going to say, I think against Portsmouth he was good. I think he linked up well. He obviously missed the the one-on-one, and then obviously he got hooked, which was a big call by Edwards, which he got right. Today was frustrating. I agree, but again, he nearly scores from the header. I thought his touch was poor today, like a lot of the players.
It was just bouncing off him, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. You're not going to drop him though. Edwards isn't going to drop him. He's captain at the minute, isn't he?
No, of course. Look, I guess we'll see what happens against QPR. Thank you very much for joining us, Dan. Brocky, did you have another point to make?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, just listening to the debate there, really interesting stuff. But I think that football fans are relatively easy to satisfy in the sense that if we lose a game, but we play good football and we create chances, then people are never usually that upset. And okay, we might be, I saw that Matt posted today, we're 4 goals shy of our XG. So we're obviously creating, a certain amount of chances. But the reality is the reason some people are upset online, or maybe not upset, but just a bit aggrieved and airing some frustrations, is the football at the moment isn't fluid. It isn't as we would expect, especially with the players that we're bringing down from Premier League level, and we haven't lost that many. So I just want to counter the point that whilst we are creating chances, like I'm the first to be positive, and I always will be, but I think it's also important to say at the minute the football, the style of football isn't working, in the sense that, like I said, for me, it's the 2 people in the middle of the park at the moment that are the key part that isn't quite working. But I do think that Jordan Clark can play a better version of that role than he is at the moment. I just wonder what instruction he's being given. And I think that when you play the shape that we do at the moment, and you've got Ogbene and Doughty stuck so far out wide, if they get pinned back, like you were discussing Ogbene does, you lose so much attacking threat. If you have 3 in the centre of midfield, it's so much more dynamic in the sense that players can shift around those kind of 3 positions that they're in. It doesn't need to be completely static. I just think there's a lot more kind of dynamic nature to having 3 in the middle. And I'm going to bang that drum because I think it's what we need to do. But yeah, we'll see. And again, Morris is the other big one. When he's stuck out on the right, he needs to be in the centre of the pitch. He needs to be either back to goal or facing goal, centre of the pitch. That's where he does his best work. And even if he's 30 yards from goal, how many, a couple of times last year we saw him spank a long range shot off the bar. If he's on the right, that doesn't happen. So yeah, they're the 2 changes that I would think about making. But it isn't all doom and gloom, but that doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with saying, look, these things need to change, because it isn't anywhere near fluid at the moment.
It isn't all doom and gloom. Well said, Brocky. Anything else to add?
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree. It certainly isn't. 3 games in. All I would say again, though, is that, the reason for people's frustration is that it might be 3 games into this season, but it's more than that. If we look back to last season, and we're getting the same results that we did last season, but we're not playing, Chelsea and Man City and Liverpool anymore. I think that's it, and I know that in itself can seem a little bit unfair, and it is, because we've lost big players, but there's where the frustration and the pressure comes from a lot of the time too. I think we've got Christian been waiting to speak as well, Ollie, if we've got time.
Yeah, I was hoping to wrap this up, but Christian, you can come on and give us a 1-minute summary of your thoughts, mate.
Yeah, the formation needs to change. The 3-4-3 is just not working. It was built for players that are no longer here. It was built for players like Ross Barkley, who is a former England international, and also same with Lokonga. It had really good players in it. And now it has players that, like Royal Walters, who before he played for Luton Town, the thing he was best known for was making Fortnite maps. That's where we're at. We haven't really played a complete game of football in almost 7 months, and the fact that a 4-4-1 is the best football that we've played in almost 7 months, I think speaks volumes. And the phone is ringing. Rob Edwards needs to pick it up. It's time to change the formation. A 5-3-2 or 3-5-2 a 4-4-2 anything is going to be a big improvement over this 3-4-3 because it is just not working. The players we have just do not work in the system. And I disagree that Taylor isn't ready. I just do. I think change is needed, and 3-4-3 just not going to be how we do it.
Fair play, Christian. You did really well there, mate. You know, I think you were bang on a minute as well. Mark, I think we should wrap this up though. What do you think? People don't want to post.
No, it's been lively. I think
they?
everyone's got it out of their, off their chest in terms of what they want to say. And, there are some great positives this week with the signings that come in. Definitely. And the depth in the bench looked really good. Also, one positive as well. I thought McGuinness had a really good debut, overall. No,
we didn't even talk about McGuinness,
we were doing some positives because I thought he was really good. I thought,
and Liam Walsh
he did when he came on.
well.
I thought he looked decent. Yeah,
he buzzed around a little bit, very lightweight, very small, but he moved around well with the ball and he kept the ball ticking over quite nicely.
I was impressed with that. I was impressed particularly with how McGuinness adapted to our quick play out from the back as well. Very cool and calm and collected, which is what we're going to need when we're playing this style of football, particularly at the backs at end. So some positives. In a not very positive day, but fingers crossed it will all come right. And if it all comes right and we smash QPR, happy days, right?
And James Shea is also a legend.
Yes.
James Shea was great today.
He was.
Yeah, well said. He had a great game, James Shea. Great game. Hopefully he gets a run out against QPR in the cup in midweek. That would be good. Right. Well, if you are watching this on YouTube, why not like this video and subscribe to our channel, because myself and Mark will be back in just a couple of days for our game week 4 predictions as well. We did really badly this week, and we're also going to be doing a Luton Town QPR match preview as well. It's going to be the first one we're going to do. We're going to pop that up on the channel and hopefully you all enjoy it. Big shout out to our audio partners, Black Star Amplification and Carry On. And also a big thanks to our podcast sponsors, The Record Shop. But I hope you all have a wonderful evening or morning if that's when you're watching this. And most importantly, come on you Hatters.